At the state capitol, talking with State Senator Andrew Chesney. Senator, let's talk about a national story which a lot of media is focusing on, and that is President Trump's first 100 days in his second term and the impact that first 100 days maybe on the state of Illinois from your perspective. What do you think is perhaps the biggest issue, the hottest issue, the biggest accomplishment in the 100 days?
Well, first, I don't know where the 100 days came from, but it seems like every administration, if it's not for governor, for president, everybody, mayor, we all talk about that first 100 days. So I think it's important to highlight some of the great accomplishments of President Trump and the impact that that has on all the people in Illinois. One of the things I would first note is just the overall border security. We saw the red carpet rolled out for illegal immigrants and migrants, and Governor Pritzker created these encampments and these welcome centers, and the border has been shut down. About 95% of the border crossings have been, President Trump has eliminated the illegal crossings by about 95%. So still 100% is perfect. No border is going to be perfect, but certainly we've seen some incredible progress as it relates to the border security. Now, the impact is of course, we need to get the worst of the worst out of our country, which he's doing, which makes all of our communities safer. But that border, our southern border, is so secure now compared to previous administrations, and that's first and foremost something that we all should be very thankful for, and certainly we should be highlighting.
Especially considering that Illinois is known as a sanctuary state.
Yeah, that's right. We're one of the few states that embrace the sanctuary state policies. Of course, Republicans have been united against that, but Governor Pritzker is more interested in going out and trying to do a presidential tour than he is fixing his own state. And, he is intentionally just acting as opposition. Anything that President Trump says, Governor Pritzker is going to do the opposite to try to grab the headlines. But, President Trump has done a phenomenal, a remarkable job in his first 100 days as it relates to border security, and something that should be welcomed by everybody. The idea that it is some way controversial to put a U.S. citizen first is really remarkable. The other side is going to have to get back to the center on some of these topics, or they're just going to continue to lose.
Okay, let's talk about another issue, and that is in education, and that is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, another very kind of hot topic.
Republicans stand that we need to measure people by their abilities and not by the color of skin or the bathroom that they choose to go into. And we're of the position that the best person for a job should be selected. Governor Pritzker's position, and a lot of the Democrats believe that we need to start putting certain programs in place to accelerate the hiring process, the application process, the approval process of certain groups. And that is, by definition, discrimination. And so just because they believe it's of moral high ground to discrimination, just to be very clear, is inappropriate at any level. And the idea that you're going to select somebody because of their color of skin and exclude somebody is racism, is by definition discrimination. And so the Republicans' position is where the majority of society stands on this issue is that everybody should be reviewed based on the merits and their ability to produce or their ability to be successful in this particular job or application, and that all of the outside variables that the governor has tried to put in should be excluded, primarily things that people can't control.
Okay, and another issue that's gotten a lot of national attention and it's really beginning to be stirred up in the state of Illinois, and that is men and boys playing in women and girls sports and mixing the two, especially in locker rooms and bathrooms and things of that sort.
Yeah, there's two genders. They are not fluid. Somebody that wakes up and feels like the other gender, we need to seek the proper mental health services to get these things addressed. But if a child, an adult, wants to participate in women's sports, that should not be allowed. Also, if that same person wants to enter a woman's locker room, that should not be allowed, or that bathroom. And it's really remarkable. These are issues where when they pull this 85% of society agrees with the Republicans on, and Governor Pritzker and these radical Democrats continue to push these really disgusting policies that have essentially signed off and said that if you're a biological male and you want to participate in women's sports, there's no standard. There's nothing to prevent that from happening. And we as Republicans have fought so very hard to level that playing field and to advocate for women's rights through Title IX, et cetera. And the idea that we're going to allow a very, very small percentage of people trample on those rights for decades. And Democrats and Republicans up until recently have somewhat agreed on these issues, but now they've taken the percentage of 10 or 15% of society, and the Republicans overwhelmingly have the majority opinion on this, and that men should not participate in women's sports, men should not be in women's bathrooms, and men should not be in women's locker rooms. Pretty simple.
One other area, maybe a final area I'd like to talk to you about. And we've heard a lot about when President Trump first took office, and there was a lot of focus on what people refer to as DOGE, government efficiency, and removing waste, fraud, and abuse from government. But that kind of goes along with that is economic growth. The two are tied because it all reflects back on the size of our government, whether or not we're going to have a balanced budget between revenue coming in and spending going out. But it's had some impact on Illinois, too.
Yeah, that's right. It should not be controversial. President Clinton, President Obama, President Bush, all with variations of success or failure, depending on how you look at it, have all spoken to the need of having government efficiency, rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse. The Democrat Party today is not only encouraging waste, fraud, and abuse, they're defending it. And so now that President Trump's going and kind of looking under the hood, so to speak, of the federal government and saying, well, why do we need these people, or why do we need this program? The Democrats are defending aid in countries most people haven't heard about. They're defending programs that exist because the Democrats benefit because their family members work in that industry or something, right? And so the idea that it is controversial to have these discussions really should give everybody pause. And we should all encourage a smarter, more efficient, more streamlined government. And that again, no different than the trans conversation, no different than the DEI conversation, the border security. The Democrats have allowed the radical left to hijack their party, and now are running their party. And Governor Pritzker is not only a part of that process, he is trying to take the lead within that process, within that role. And so we as Republicans have to remind the citizens that we all represent that our positions are not only mainstream and correct, but are well received by the overwhelming majority of the people we represent, and that our positions are measured, our positions are welcomed, and most importantly, when implemented, will offer great benefit to everybody that we represent.
If this is what we're seeing the first 100 days, you're confident about the next 3.5 years?
Yeah, we're going to see improvements as it relates to government efficiency and DOGE. We're going to see a continuation of negotiations as it relates to President Trump's tariffs and tariff negotiations. Of course, those are negotiations that are ongoing, and it's going to take several months and perhaps years to turn around and this massive government, this massive economy, and right size it, so to speak. And so I give him an A+. I think he's done a fantastic job, and I'm certainly encouraged in what the progress is to come.
Well, considering the previous 4 years, no one can argue that there wasn't a lot of economic hardships, inflation off the charts. It's come out that the federal government and the Bureau of Labor Statistics fudged reports on joblessness or how many jobs were created. So you can't just repair all the damage that was done in a very short period of time. It's going to take a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the American people fired the Democrat Party, and they said that the economy wasn't working for them. They said the woke policies were not working for them, and they said that the border crisis was not working for them. And so you can't expect this all to be fixed in 100 days. President Trump has made tremendous progress, and it's trying to reset the economy to where it works for everyday people, which he's doing through his tariff negotiations and tough negotiations with our foreign adversaries and partners. He has essentially shut down the southern border, and he is aggressively deporting the illegal immigrants and the criminals in our state and in our country. And you have the Democrat Party that is going to foreign countries trying to get illegal immigrants back into our country. I mean, you have sitting U.S. senators and congressmen and women that are actively going to our foreign partners and asking for illegal immigrants to be sent back to our country. It's just remarkable. People that have associations with some of the most horrific gang and criminal activity that this world has ever seen. And so I think that President Trump has correctly identified many of the problems, and it's just going to take a little bit more time to get those worked out. But good progress and a heck of 100 days.
Senator Andrew Chesney, thanks.
Thank you for having me on.